Before I go to Douglas, Cenk, one question. You want to get rid of Hamas too, as does Douglas, as do I. If you don't do it the way that Israel is currently doing it, given that they live amongst the population, how else do you do it?
Yeah, there's an excellent way to do it, and there's the right way to do it. So let me explain. So war, this guy talks about, oh, I love war. I go to all the conflict zones. So by watching it and rooting on for more death, I know something about conflict. You know nothing.
In this video, Cenk Uygur torches Douglas Murray's Gaza lies on Piers Morgan's show. Douglas tries throwing out all the usual conservative deflections: Uyghurs, Sudan, Pakistan, you name it. Anything but Gaza. Meanwhile, Cenk comes in with straight facts. The death toll, the hospitals destroyed, and how the idea of peace through bombing is just pure delusion. And when Douglas finally loses grip on the actual argument, he just lashes out with personal insults towards Cenk. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Cenk Uygur torches Douglas Murray's Gaza lies on Piers Morgan's show.
So here's what reality is. War gets you more war, but peace actually works. So when Israel did a peace deal with Egypt, not only were the Egyptians safe, but the Israelis became safer. That peace deal has held for decade after decade. So how do you do a peace deal in this case? What you do is you do the two-state solution now, and you do it with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And if you then have a Palestinian state, the Palestinian Authority would have the credibility to drive out Hamas from Gaza. That is a realistic plan for both peace, security for Israel and the Palestinians, and driving out Hamas. The idea that you're going to kill 20,000 more civilians, 200,000 more civilians in Gaza, and it's going to drive out Hamas.
Okay, let Douglas
answer that.
Let Douglas respond to that.
First of all, I mean, your other guest, I mean, I don't know what kind of a creature he is. He's a kind of low-grade thug, as far as I can see. He's listened to nothing I've said.
Yeah, I know, because I'm Muslim. That's what we call all Muslims.
I'll tell you. No, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. I just think that I think you're just a very low-rent racist. But anyway, let me just get on to it. You say first of all, I don't care about the death of Palestinian children. Yes, I do care. I care very deeply about it. But I also know that the responsibility for their deaths lies on Hamas, which has misgoverned their society for the last 16 years and now has been leading the country into being in a war with Israel. So yes, it's on Hamas this. As for seeing wars, by the way, I just mentioned about seeing wars because as far as I can see, you're very ill-travelled as well as rather ill-lettered and ill-spoken. And I mention that I cover wars and go to wars because I happen to think myself that it's worth seeing things with your own eyes, including things that you don't particularly like, but you report the truth. I don't know if you ever even leave your own bedroom. And I can tell already that you don't because you've already said something that demonstrates you know nothing about this conflict. You have just demonstrated it in the following terms. You said that this is why we need to push for a two-state solution and give legitimacy to the Palestinian Authority. I'll tell you something you don't know because I guess you spent no time in the West Bank, have you? I'll tell you something you probably don't know.
So Cenk lays out a straight-up realistic peace strategy, and Douglas just has a meltdown. Like, Cenk's argument is solid. Peace with Egypt worked, and a two-state solution with the Palestinian Authority could both isolate Hamas and bring actual security for Israelis and Palestinians. He's not hand-waving anything. He's literally offering a long-term plan that deals with Hamas without carping bombing civilians. That's the kind of argument you'd expect someone serious to respond to with facts, or at least an alternative. But Douglas? Nah. Instead of engaging with the plan, he just unloads his unhinged monologue. He calls Cenk a low-grade thug, questions whether he's ever traveled, insults his intelligence, his literacy, his speech. It's just full-on insults. And for what? Because he couldn't handle a plan that didn't revolve around everything being blown up? Then he starts rambling about how Cenk supposedly doesn't know anything about the Palestinian Authority or the West Bank, as if being condescending makes his argument magically valid.
The Palestinian Authority, Fatah, celebrated the 7th of October massacres. I'll give you another fact which demonstrates you know nothing about this and clearly haven't ever visited any Palestinians in the West Bank as I have. If there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, the reason why there isn't one is because if there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, Hamas would win. So your idea of a two-state solution, I'm afraid you are so out of date and you really should leave your bedroom. Because in this region, nobody thinks that there is a two-state solution on the table because there is not a viable negotiating partner. But I just want to make one other main point. you have gone on and on tonight, throwing accusations out against the Jewish state, against me. It's the sort of thing you do. I know you're a sort of online pugilist and think you can run for office, and good luck with that. But I'd just like to point out that you only really get animated if the Jews are involved. And I can tell that for the following reason. I mean, your surname's Uyghur, isn't it? 1 million Uyghur Muslims in China have been put in concentration camps in the last decade. And people of your ilk never really care about that, do you? Because it's not the Jews doing it, it's the Chinese Communist Party. At the moment, 1 million people who are in Pakistan at the moment, who are your fellow Muslims and who happen to be Afghan, and I don't think you care about them, do you? 1 million Afghans are currently being forcibly deported from Pakistan to Afghanistan. You don't care about that. You're not riled up about that. You're not riled up about what the Janjaweed are currently doing in Sudan, where thousands and thousands of people are being attacked by the Islamist militia there. You don't care about any of that. You get exercised and you rile up what little base you have of malcontents because you're riled up when the Jews do anything.
All right,
it's
Cenk.
perfectly obvious.
Okay. Cenk, your response.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, my last name is Uygur. We're named after the Uyghur Turks in China. And have we talked about that on the Young Turks?
I thought you'd spoken up then.
Yes. Yes, we've talked about it endlessly, but you don't know that, and you don't watch the show.
Shame
you just
nobody
make
watches
things up.
your show.
So
nobody does watch your show.
Yeah, well, okay. Again, you're interrupting me when I was kind enough to let you go on with your mad ramblings. So how nobody watches the show? We have 5 billion views a year. I don't know what piddling outfit you're on, or what little Substack or whatever the hell you write on. So the reason we're incredibly popular is we fight for all. We fight for shut up. We fight for all innocent civilians. So yes, we've covered all of those conflicts. Yes, I'm against fundamentalist Islam, no question about it. I'm against fundamentalist religions of all kind. In terms of every right-wing supporter of Israel, their only tactic is, hey, don't look at the 8,000 murdered children. Don't look at the 6,400 murdered women. Don't look at the fact that all the hospitals in northern Gaza have been shut down. Don't look at the fact that 4 out of 5 people in northern Gaza are starving right now, and half the people in southern Gaza are starving. Instead, anti-Semite, anti-Semite.
So Douglas just goes completely off the rails here. Like he already lost the policy debate. And now he's just reaching for the ugliest, most desperate smear he can throw. Basically accusing Cenk of only caring about Palestinian lives because they're in conflict with Israel. He literally runs through this bizarre checklist of global tragedies. Uyghurs, Sudan, Afghan refugees. Like Cenk has to personally protest each one or else he's not allowed to criticize Israel. It's not even subtle. It's just straight up bad faith deflections dressed up like he's morally superior. Douglas was nothing but condescending and projecting here, and Cenk just tore through all of it. He kept the focus where it matters, on the people actually being bombed, starved, and erased while pundits like Douglas sit back and moralize from a safe distance.
Now, wait a minute. I just told you how much I want peace and security for Israel, how much I hated what happened on October 7th. What you don't know is I started the Young Turks with 2 Jewish friends. And so the whole program is both Jews and Muslims. You know nothing. You know nothing. I have Jewish family and friends. Why in the world, God, as they go to Israel, I want them to be safe, okay? So I have shown empathy for all civilians throughout everything I have ever done. But all you have is hatred. Oh, he's an anti-Semite. Kill the Muslims. Kill the Palestinians. And once we kill them, by the way, we'll blame them for it. Israel had to murder all those babies in Palestine because Hamas made us do it. Then why are you listening to Hamas? Why are you letting Hamas drive your agenda? Well, you don't have to kill those civilians. It's a mass assassination factory.
It's been reported today, and this is coming from Hamas's statements, apparently, picked up by newspapers in America, that there was a new hostage deal offered, which was that Hamas were asked, will you release the 40 women and children you still have captive in return for a week-long ceasefire, and they apparently have rejected that. So I think that when we talk about behaviour on both sides, the mere fact that there are still 40 women and children in the clutches of Hamas, and God knows what they're doing to those poor women, that should be noted too. There are still innocent people being held in the most appalling conditions by Hamas, and that is also motivating Israel's response. But I'll give you the last word, Cenk.
Yeah. So I wish to God that they would release those women and children. I think it's immoral to keep them. It's wrong in every way. but Israel kills more than 40 women and children every single day, all completely innocent. Look, even if you take IDF's outlandish numbers of 7,000 Hamas fighters killed, that means their kill ratio of civilians to fighters is still worse than Hamas's. And they have now killed 20 times the number of civilians that Hamas has killed. So when Douglas talks about driving them into Egypt or Jordan, that's just ethnic cleansing. They live in Gaza. So if you push them out and they say, well, you're all Arabs anyway, why don't you just go live somewhere else in the region? That's the definition of ethnic cleansing. That is outrageous. And he says it with blithely, with no concern, because Palestinian lives don't matter. And you ask them, hey, how many Palestinians can you possibly kill? And he never answered the question. So the reality is you cannot kill your way out of this conflict. The more that they kill, the more, what do you think that the Palestinians are going to feel? What would you feel if your family was butchered, if their heads were crushed by a bomb that was dropped on a building, if they were lit on fire by the bombs that were dropped? What would you do? You'd fight back the rest of your life. And then they are permanently occupied in...
This whole debate just exposed everything wrong with how people like Douglas Murray approach Gaza. When faced with real numbers, real suffering, and a legitimate path to peace, he didn't bring any counter-arguments. He just brought insults, deflections, and tired talking points. Meanwhile, Cenk kept the focus on human lives, pushed for actual solutions, and called out the grotesque double standards that always surface in these conversations. And Piers, he just lets it happen. No pushback, no moderation, just another segment pretending to be balanced while letting one side spiral unchecked. It's not even subtle anymore. This kind of coverage is just blatantly biased from top to bottom. Speaking of biased, are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.